Welcome to 10 Seconds to Air. I'm Alita Guillen. You may not think about it, but we are constantly negotiating, persuading, and being persuaded. Persuasion is a critical skill to have if you want anything. It starts when we're young, convincing a parent to let us stay up late, to years later negotiating for a raise or simply asking your kids to pick up their shoes. We are using persuasion daily, and we're being persuaded by others, the media, politicians, marketing agencies, even family members. So how do we recognize when we're being persuaded to act against our interest? And how do we develop the skills to get what we want? There are three key pieces of persuasion that my guest today will discuss to make us better at getting what we want. My guest is Dr. Timothy Levine, professor and chair of communications at the University of Oklahoma. His work around communication has been featured on NBC, CNN, NPR, and in the New York Times, Washington Post, National Geographic, and right here on this podcast. Last year, we spoke to him about deception. His book, Duped, Truth Default Theory and the Social Science of Lying and Deception, is a bestseller and explains just how to tell if you're being deceived. And guess what? It's not what you think. Today, he joins me to talk about persuasion and deception.
Stand by. We're going live. We're going live. 10, 9, going live. 7, 6, 5, going live. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Professor, thank you so much for joining me again today. Appreciate having you back on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
We had a great conversation about deception, and I do remember you saying there is so much more to talk about, and persuasion came up in that conversation, and I felt we didn't get to dive deep enough into persuasion, and we're at this time sort of in the world that we're in where I think persuasion is something we should dive into right now and have people really understand how persuasion is really in our everyday life.
It is.
It is. So much so that I have persuaded you to come back on again, and I'm going to persuade you to answer the same question that I asked you before, see if it changed at all, about what goes through your mind. 10 seconds to speaking on this, 10 seconds to air, to a class, to a lecture. What goes through your mind? 10 seconds to air.
Well, usually I have a good idea where the topic is going to go. But today, less so, because persuasion is so broad. And the way I was thinking maybe of framing it might not be where this ends up going. So what's going through my mind is I'm deeply curious about where this is going to go.
Oh, okay.
And it might go in lots of different directions.
Yeah, I hope it does go in lots of different directions. I like those kind of conversations. So where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I was, when I got your invitation, I was thinking about persuasion, about being a wise consumer, and how persuasion works in the modern age and how that's changed, but persuasion from the consumer point of view. But then, of course, we're also persuaders ourselves, and that would take the conversation in a different direction, but one that will probably be very useful to your listeners.
Okay, well, let's see if we can maybe touch on both. First off, let's have you define persuasion. What is it?
So I think persuasion is a subtype of a larger thing I want to call social influence.
Okay.
So social influence is any time one or more people are trying to impact other people. Maybe they're trying to get them to believe something or do something or think something or feel something. So persuasion's specifically communicative. It's usually intentional.
Okay.
If you are persuaded or not, it's usually a volitional thing. So you're trying to convince somebody of something. So persuasion, I think, has a free choice element to it that would distinguish it from things like conformity or obedience.
So wait, let's get into that a second. What are the what's the nuance there?
So when I think of obedience, I think of that as influence that's due to some kind of authority or some kind of power structure. So we're obeying somebody. We're following the rules. We're following what somebody who has power is saying. Coercion is when we're forced to do something. So that lacks kind of the volition or free choice. Conformity, I think of as a outcome of social pressures. We look around to see what other people are doing, and if we go along with the group, that would be an example of conformity. Whereas persuasion, I'm trying to get you to either think about something through rational arguments or maybe use emotions, but nevertheless, you have the choice to buy in to it or not.
Well, I'm going to just challenge that for a second, because if you're persuading me of something, the way you're describing it is implying that I'm aware of what you're doing and therefore making a choice. But I often feel that we are persuaded into things. I mean, I think of buying something. I think of politics. I think of social media. Oftentimes we are persuaded and we don't even realize it. So I'm not sure I'm actually choosing what it is that you're pushing or persuading me to want, buy, or think.
At least when I'm teaching the class, I would call those instances of compliance. So I'm getting you to comply with something which may go under your radar.
Okay.
But if I'm getting you to actually kind of change your view on something, that would be more persuasion. And I don't think you have to necessarily be, I don't know, you have to necessarily be aware of it. It depends on how you define the words, I guess.
You don't necessarily have to be what?
How much awareness you have to have.
Oh, okay. I think of persuasion as a little manipulative. Is there a difference between persuasion and manipulation as you define it?
Good question. I think persuasion could either be manipulative or not. I'm trying to think. If I'm trying to get you to buy my product. Oh, I want you to buy my book. And I can tell you why you might enjoy the book and why you would find it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm being very straightforward with you in my aim, and I'm not misrepresenting it in any way, then I think I might be trying to persuade you, but I wouldn't consider that manipulative.
Okay.
On the other hand, if I, made false promises about the book, then that might be manipulative. Mm-hmm. Or if I was trying to play on certain emotions, maybe that might be more manipulative.
Is there emotion that's involved in persuasion? If you're persuading me of something, do you need me to feel something?
Don't need, but that's one path.
Okay. What are those key elements that you need in having a successful persuasion?
I don't think there's a necessary set. Okay. So you need kind of the right approach for the right person in the right situation. And nothing works all the time on everybody.
Okay. Well, that's a consideration then. So let's go back to when we're a child. Persuasion starts very early in our life. How are we learning persuasion?
Like we learn everything else. We watch what other people are doing, and we also do trial and error. And when we do things and it works, then we're more likely to do it again. Mm-hmm. If we see somebody do something and it works, more likely to do it again. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have very good friends who, when they were raising their children, the number one rule in the house was you can't ever get what you want by whining. You could get things by asking and having good reasons for things, but if you ever just threw a tantrum, that was never encouraged. And I think that worked out well for them, I think. And it might be good advice for a lot of people.
As we get older, we start to be more deliberate in persuasion. We really think about it. We need a raise. We want our kids to pick up their shoes. We want something to be done. How much consideration do we have in what the other person also wants?
So the number one way everyday people try to influence other people is what I might call a direct request. If give me a raise, please. So direct request plus a little politeness. And the other main thing people do is direct request plus politeness, give me a raise, please, plus reason. Plus I work really hard.
Okay, wait. Okay, so let's go through that again. Direct request.
So direct request, give me a raise.
Yep. Please.
Direct request with politeness, direct request, please. Or I hate to ask, but I could really use a raise.
And the third piece?
Direct request plus politeness plus reason.
Plus reason. Okay.
So would you please give me a raise because I work really hard? Would you please give me a raise because your competitor would pay me more? The better the reason, the more directly it appeals to the person you're trying to influence, the better it's going to work. So if you can, the best case scenario for persuasion is where I'm able to phrase what I want in terms of some kind of win-win outcome. So we're both better off, and I have, honest reasons, they're good reasons, they're mutually beneficial reasons. And anytime persuasion's working in that, it's generally a good thing because, it's rising all boats.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say that when I ask the kids to pick up the shoes, I'm probably not hitting those three elements. So I need to have I need the request, I need the please, and I need the reason. And the reason needs to make more sense, I think. I think the reason is not working for them because they think, well, the shoes go there, or why not put the shoes there? It was easy. I clicked them off and that made sense to me. But that last piece is very crucial in persuasion, that reason was not quite good enough for the other party.
Right. Now, maybe your reason is, please pick up your shoes because I'm the parent and I get to tell you to do this. And so long as they buy into that situation, then they'll go along with it. It will be perfectly reasonable because you as parent. So, when my boss, the dean, tells me to do something, he might say please, and he might give me a reason, which I appreciate. But I'm probably going to do it just because, in my job, deans get to tell department chairs what to do, and it's in my interest to buy into that power relationship and accept it. And the better I am in my job at making my dean successful in his job, the better it will be for me. Right.
Okay. So that makes sense. When we get away from that sort of power struggle, so for example, in retail, you mentioned that for a second. In retail, how is that working? How is the persuasion working for or against me, I guess? If I really wanted to buy that, great. If I didn't and I bought it anyway, I guess it worked against me. But how is that structure working for persuasion?
So we can think of consumers as having what we might call in sales buttons.
Buttons?
Yeah, buttons
Okay.
that we can push. These are the things that are important to them. And that if we push the right button for the right person. So some people in retail sales, they're really concerned about how they look. So if your product will help them look better, make a better impression on others, be more popular, then they will watch your product. Some people are bargain hunters. So if you can convince them that they're getting a really good deal, then they were, if they can walk out thinking, I got such a good deal on this, then they'll be a happy consumer and they'll buy your stuff. And then different people have, different combinations of motivations. So the more you can talk to people and get a feel for what's important to them, and that you can then tailor, show how your product is going to help them, or buying from you is going to help them satisfy their priorities, you'll be more successful.
So what I'm hearing you say then again is about the buy-in, right? The other party has to buy in to what you're persuading. And if they don't, your persuasion was not successful.
Right. And in sales sorts of things, how successful you are is, very straightforward.
Yeah. So that's an easy measurement. But in everyday life, our ability to persuade is not measured like that. It's not like we have a number. I don't go through my day, wake up in the morning, I convince my kids to get ready for school, or, I guess if they don't get ready, then I know I wasn't very good at that, although I don't think about it as my persuasive ability. But we are constantly, and now that I'm really thinking about it, and I hope people listening are as well, we are constantly working on a persuasive line. What do you call that? All day we're working on persuasion. I'm persuading you to tell me more. I'm persuading people to listen right now. I'm going to leave and I'm going to persuade, my husband to maybe make dinner. It's constant in communication or in how you roll. So it's something that we really need to think about. But at the same time, do we need to think about it? How do you frame persuasion for communication? Is it such a key pillar?
Well, I think we all do it. Some of us do it better than others. Some of us are more successful, have a higher hit rate than others. Some of them are more comfortable doing it than others. I really don't like asking for favors. It feels like I'm imposing, and that has kind of a yucky feel to me. So, but then again, my job, I need to persuade the students who take my classes to come to class, and it's in there. Convince them that it's their interest to turn in their assignments and to do well on them and to read the assignments. And so there's persuasion in everybody's life. And then there's the whole other side of it, because we're constantly being persuaded.
Right.
And I think the more mindful we can be, probably not every persuasion instance requires a lot of mindfulness and thought. I don't, if I need a small favor, it's probably good enough just to ask. And if someone says no, it's not really that big a deal. It's probably good to add the politeness on there. Giving a reason never hurts, but this will work for probably most things most of the time. But when we are thinking about things like asking for the job raise, it's probably a good idea to think through how we're going to go about doing that. And if we can convey it in a way that's going to be a win-win, or some of these bigger asks. If it's going to be a win-win, then we're going to be more successful.
There are times when persuasion, I'm going to say, is a negative. Maybe I'm not framing it exactly right, but I did read something that you had written about health and about people being persuaded when it comes to health. Can you just talk about that for a second? Because that's a different example of persuasion that I think is a perspective that we don't often think about, but very important in the world that we're in right now, especially in the political scene, with vaccines not being required anymore. There's a persuasion there that you have done research on. Explain that research.
A huge area of my field of communication is the area of health communication. And a lot of health communication work is on trying to persuade the public to do things that are healthy or good for them. And, there are just numerous examples, but most health-related campaigns aren't super successful, at least immediately. It took a long time to get Americans to smoke less. Ultimately, that was successful, but it took real sustained effort over time, and there had to be enough people kind of to quit smoking to reach a tipping point for it to catch on. The same is probably true with seatbelts. I'm not super up on the latest vaccine numbers, but it does seem like those are sliding. And of course, this puts other people at risk, because if somebody catches something that was preventable, and then they pass it on. So it's a real persuading people in mass is really, really, really difficult. And this is where the stuff I learned in graduate school and the stuff in my published research may be becoming outdated. Let me explain that a little bit.
Explain that. Yeah.
So back in the day when persuasion happened by radio ads or TV spots or ads in newspapers, the goal was to affect people on average. And so you had to have these mass appeals that appealed to a wide swath of people. And in the days of cell phones and social media, this isn't how persuasion works anymore. I'm reading the New York Times today, and the ads that I'm getting are going to be different than what the next reader is getting, because somewhere somebody knows what I'm buying online. They know where my credit cards are being used. They can track the geographic location on my cell phones. They know so much information about me. Then they can target particular ads to me. But it's not only that, you can get some AI bot that is targeting different kinds of ads to me and seeing then which of them work on me in particular. And so they can fine tune these. The persuasion can be targeted to the particular person in a particular context at a particular time in a way that was never possible in the past, and in which academics like me don't have any access to and I'm not sure any humans really know fully well how this is working, because it's all done by algorithm.
Yeah. So you're saying that instead of when at one time it was convincing the masses of something, now it is completely changed. Persuasion is so specific and individualized.
Yes. So if if you want somebody to vote for you, you can target your message to a particular voter. Or if you want to sell your product, you can only target the people who, buy that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can figure out what actually appeals to them. So there's no reason that when you and I go on Amazon, we need to see the same sorts of things.
Well, that to me feels like manipulation.
Me too.
Okay. In some of your research I read, though, you were talking about fear.
Yeah.
And how fear plays into persuasion. How does fear play into persuasion?
Fear is probably the most common emotion used in health campaigns. And the idea is that there's this really bad thing that's going to happen to you. And it's really scary. And here's how you can make yourself safer. So in the study you're talking about was practicing safe sex to prevent HIV in Africa. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to scare people, and HIV is this really, really bad disease, and here's how to be safer. And the particular study you're referencing, we thought that wouldn't work in Africa because the infection rates are really high and people are already probably pretty scared. So if you're really scared of something, some communication message isn't going to make you any more scared. Probably need a different sort of strategy. So fear would work best if you're at risk of something and you don't know you're at risk of it.
Okay, for example?
Probably the shingles vaccine ads work pretty well on this. People may not know a lot about shingles, and by all accounts, it's really unpleasant and you don't want to get it. So, if you've had chickenpox, you're going to be susceptible to the shingles thing, but you can reduce the chances and protect yourself by this, vaccine. That has a reasonably good chance of working. But if I was going to, tell Ukrainian soldiers that they needed to be careful of drones, they already know this. And scaring them a little, I'm not going to be able to scare them any more than the nature of the reality as they know it. So you probably want to try a different strategy in that situation.
You're trying to create, when it comes to the shingles vaccine, you're trying to create a scenario that would scare me enough to want to take the vaccine, that getting shingles is scarier than the vaccine itself.
Right. So I want to scare you of this bad thing.
Right.
And then I want to show you a way not to be scared anymore.
Okay. That's very manipulative.
Yes.
And is that primarily what happens in health? Your focus is communication in health. Is that how healthcare works?
That's how a lot of healthcare messaging works.
So what can we do to make sure we're getting the right information and our emotions are not being manipulated so much that we make a decision that maybe isn't good for us as an individual?
Put some time before you act on a decision. If you can seek more information's great, but I think the best advice for protecting yourself against persuasion is not to act on impulse. So if I think, I need this on Amazon, it's real easy to go put it in your box and click, right?
Right.
Put it in your box and wait a couple days. Think, do I still need this?
Right. So, but how do you have that stop though, to control yourself to think that I don't need it? Or I guess it's a self-check to feel, is this an emotional decision or is this a need based decision, which actually also makes me think about the book behind you, Duped, that sort of might be a good time to segue into that, because that I remember us talking about deception and not knowing when you're deceived and when you're not deceived. And also the importance of maybe not knowing sometimes is okay, which I'm sure someone listening thinks, whoa, wait a second. So you're manipulating me. I'm supposed to pay attention to not be manipulated, make a check to see if that's okay. Yet at the same time, I do remember you saying when it comes to deception that sometimes, and I really love for you to explain this again because I thought this was so interesting. And then we can send people to the other podcast so they listen to that as well too. But I remember you talking about it's okay for us to believe each other.
Yes.
Explain that. I love that.
Well, we have to, because without that, we're not going to have any good, satisfying relationships. It's, if you don't trust the people around you, you're in a horrible, uncomfortable place all the time. We need our relationships, and we also need our stuff too, tying this back into persuasion. So it's not that consumerism's bad. It's just we want to try to do it more wisely.
Right.
So we don't want to approach things, I think, as everybody's trying to scam us. That doesn't strike me as very psychologically healthy. But I do think we can just, I have a problem with impulse buying. I will buy things that I probably, I'll buy some more toothpaste and realize I already have some. Okay. And if I would just kind of hold off a little bit and see if I really need some, I would probably I would manage my finances a little bit more efficiently. So I think there's also this is a similarity between deception and persuasion from the consumer point of view. Is one of the things I ask myself is how important this is. So if things aren't very important, then I really don't worry about deception. And if it's not very important, I don't really worry too much about being persuaded or influenced if it's low stakes. So I don't think we want to constantly have our guard up for everything. But I think there's times when it's really important. So there's unfortunately, all kinds of scams going around. Some of the latest, people will text you with the wrong number or call you with the wrong number and use that to start up a conversation. And then they keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And over time, you learn that they're making a ton of money in crypto. And they won't ever tell you how they're doing it unless you ask. But if you ask, they'll tell you the website. And they'll make sure that if you want to invest in it, that you invest a little bit and take some money out to make sure it works. But it's really a spoof site. And once you invest enough, then the site disappears and your money's gone forever. But it's this, super long scams. So before you, give your social security number to anybody or, invest money or things, you want to exhibit some care or, make a big purchase. You want to be careful when you're buying a house or buying a car. But little everyday things, my advice is don't worry about it too much.
There are certain people that definitely go through life questioning if everyone is duping them in some way. Those people are tough because it's almost like you get nothing done. If you're constantly thinking that somebody's duping you, you're just not going to get anything done.
Yes, it's absolute mental paralysis.
So we do need to trust just a little bit until we get to whatever our threshold is.
Yeah, and the more you trust, the more smoothly we'll go, as long as you're not putting yourself at risk for those big important things.
Right.
So everything you probably think you know about deception is probably wrong. Things.
First off, starting there.
When it comes to deception, things aren't what they seem. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So most people believe that dishonesty is signaled through behavioral signals or tells. And research just doesn't seem to support that. On the other hand, the key to being a better consumer communication is to listen to the content of it carefully. The more you can put that content into context, and the more background knowledge you have, the better you're going to be. Most deception's detected well after the fact. So most of the times we're deceived, we often never know it. It's often discovered after the fact, when the truth becomes apparent, and we look back and go, oh, that wasn't true.
Even when that happens, it sometimes takes a long time. For example, I'll go back to your smoking example. Even when you have the information to know that you have been deceived, duped, told something that was incorrect, persuaded improperly, and you do after the fact that you were a smoker, and now you know this is bad for you, and now you know, forget about the fact that it is addictive, but that takes a lot for people to go, okay, it is bad for me, I will make a change with this. But it's almost like nobody wanted to believe that. I'm using that as an example, but that's an example in many cases when we think what we know is true, or we think we want to believe they didn't deceive us. Why does that happen? Why does it take us so long when we have all these touch points of information that tell us we were deceived?
Humans are great at rationalizing things. So sometimes this is called confirmation bias. But we tend to seek out information that supports what we already think, and we tend to dismiss conflicting information. And I think oftentimes too, smoking's a great example of this. So for smoking to really decline in the US, it wasn't just that people had to be convinced that this was really bad for them. Also, it had to convince other people. So long as everybody was smoking, there were still pressures to smoke. And it was when other people quit smoking, then this created social pressures on those around them to no longer smoke either. So it was kind of this confirmation bias thing working in combination with these social pressures that led to the real big change. And both were essential.
Both are essential. What are the two pieces that are essential? Both what?
So it's what you think and how information aligns with that. And what the people around you think and how the information aligns to that. So if, you think that vaccines don't work, or they do more harm than good, and the people around you also think that, then you reinforce each other.
Oh, wow.
And you get in these
dangerous.
Information silos or information circles. And then it's really, really hard to change things, because not only do you have to persuade the person, you have to explain the other people too, and break that social reinforcement that's going on.
So the piece that keeps it going is the social reinforcement. Even
Yes.
when you know and you get information to say, this is wrong, or this may not be what I thought it was, you see the people around you and you say, well, everyone else is thinking that.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. How much more data do you need in order to break that cycle and go against the social group?
This varies dramatically from person to person. I have a really, really, really good friend who is almost immune to social pressures. He is absolutely convinced in what he thinks, and he doesn't mind if he's the only person in the world that thinks it. I know other people who are just, they jump on the bandwagon the first chance they get. And there's people everywhere in between.
Yeah.
So people have different comfort levels or tolerances for nonconforming. And we know those people who are nonconformists.
But what does it take in order for you to be a nonconformist when you are a conformist? How much information do you have to keep on hammering? I'm using smoking, but we can use all kinds of things. There's politics, there's Hitler, there were people that supported him. And then, how much do you need to know before you are willing to go against the social norm to say, wait a second, this is not good for me, or this is simply wrong?
I think sometimes you never get that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I think there's, there's some people who are, willing to break off easily, but a lot of people won't.
I want to go back to just for 1 second to staying with this, but when you mentioned when someone is deceiving you, don't watch them. Don't look at their body language. Don't think that you know when someone's lying because of their shifty eyes or whatever. You're saying go to facts or go to information. So kind of take emotion out of it, or what's the piece we should be taking out of it?
Try to take your intuition.
Wow.
Kind of, especially the social sort of intuition, because we want to believe people we like. And we want to believe people who are friendly, and we want to believe people who are confident. But if we can listen to what they say, if we can bring evidence into it, great. If we can't, we can ask ourselves, do they have a reason to be deceiving us? How plausible is what they're saying? If the answer is, yeah, they have a reason not to be honest with me, and no, that doesn't sound right, then we might be more skeptical.
Yeah. How do you go about your day in deciding if you're being deceived or persuaded into something that you don't necessarily need or want, or that's not good for you? What's your protocol in making sure you stay in a good communication path with yourself and with others?
So it depends on if this is something in my social or professional life, or if it's kind of a consumer, kind of mass persuasion sort of instance. In my everyday life, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
We just trust until I have a really good reason not to. And even when I discover deception, I try to think about it from the other person's point of view, and try not to think, oh, they're a bad person, but I try to think of why they're saying what they're saying, and try to maintain good relationships with the humans around me, and not act in ways that might harm those. For anything consumer related, I try to be the decision maker. I try to, I think if I think I need some new clothes, then I will go out and search out what I'm looking for. If I've got some extra money, I want to make an investment, I'm going to go and search out what I want to do. I'm not going to respond to a cold call, or I try not to respond to ads or cold calls or things like that. I try to be in control of the decisions in my life, and I try to practice that.
Do you do that when it comes to your consumption of news, politics, social media? Do those all fall under the same consumerism? Okay.
Yeah, I try to reach out for it when I want to, in the format that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Newspapers are so old thing, but I really, the thing I like about newspapers is you can pick what stories you want to read. And if I'm just not up for this thing, or I don't really care, I can pass it by. But if I'm listening, to TV or radio, then I have to, whatever the stories that they're deciding my stories for me.
Good point.
And I would rather pick mine for me, at least sometimes. Although, sometimes it's just nice to have the radio on and see what comes on.
Mm-hmm.
I like all things considered for that reason, because you never know what the next story is going to be.
Right.
And they'll cover a lot of ground.
Right. So for people who are listening who want to just start off today, tomorrow, noticing persuasion, being better at persuasion, perhaps not being deceived when they don't need to be deceived or want to be deceived, or it's not in their best interest, what would you say to start off with to be a better communicator right away when it comes to persuasion, deception, moving forward?
So on the consumption angle, the thing we talked about earlier with know when to have your guard up and when to have your guard down. So is it important? Is there something at stake? And if there's not something huge at stake, you're better off trusting people and not worrying about it. No reason to have one more anxiety in life. But if it's important, and you're in a place where it's over your threshold for risk tolerance for whatever it is, then just step back and try to be mindful about it, and not make quick decisions.
Mm-hmm.
From communicating with others' point of view, if you want something, ask. If you don't ask often, you don't get. Mm-hmm. Try to ask politely. Try to consider the perspective of the person you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can adapt to the better able you are to know who you're communicating with and to tailor your communication to them in a way that's going to be mutually beneficial, the better your communication encounters will go.
Know your audience.
Yeah, know your audience.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Professor. This has been a pleasure. Always good to talk to you. You always have great insight and information.
Yeah, this is a fun chat. I think we covered a tremendous amount of ground.